Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grilling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to the Grueling Truths NFL Legends Show, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, an interactive football app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and see what all others have called also. So check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. Our guest today, legendary running back at Louisiana State University, went on to be a first-round draft pick with the Cincinnati Bengals, helped lead the Bengals to Super Bowl XVI. Help me welcome to the show, Charles Alexander.
Thank you. Pleasure. My pleasure.
Great to have you on. So we'll just start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your early years, when you first started playing football, and who some of your early influences were.
That's been so long ago, I don't know if I can remember that, but I'll try. I think the first time I decided to play football, I was in the 8th grade, and I went out there, and I can't remember what position I tried to play. It was either running back or defensive back, and all I can remember is coming home one day real tired, and I was raised on my grandmother, and she said, well, look, if it's too hard for you, don't worry about it. You can do something else. So I decided to quit. And once I did quit, I regretted that I did, and I said, well, I'll wait until next year, and I'll go back out there, and this time I'm not going to quit. And all
right, so tell us a little bit about your high school career when you realized that you could play at the next level in college.
I was recruited by LSU and decided to go to LSU. I'm from a small town, Galveston, Texas, probably about, at the time, 60,000 people. And it was a tough decision on whether or not I would go to the University of Houston, which was only maybe an hour from my hometown, or whether or not I would jump in the car and go 5 hours to LSU. And eventually I made the decision to go to LSU.
So what pushed you that way? Was it Coach McClendon and Coach Stovall?
It was, to be honest with you, it was basically Coach Stovall. He was a fearless, relentless, never say no recruiter. I didn't have great numbers in high school, so I just couldn't understand what he saw in me. But obviously he saw something that nobody else did, because he recruited me like I was a 5-star running back. The other schools recruited me, but they were sort of, lukewarm, but nothing like Coach Stovall. And I decided that, this guy seems like he can make me into something, and I'm going to give him a shot. And I really loved the school when I went to visit, and I decided to make that decision to go to LSU.
All right, so you get there. You came from a small school. You said you didn't have huge numbers in high school. How big of an adjustment was it for you from a small high school to a Division I college football program?
Well, it was a small town. It really wasn't a small school. We were 4A. I graduated with over 800 classmates in my class. But I went in high school. I had 3 different head coaches in a period of 4 years, so it wasn't no stability there, and we went from the high formation to the wishbone, and we really couldn't. The coaches couldn't decide what they wanted to do, and it was mass confusion. And we really had a lot of talent on that team, but just never was able to turn the corner. And I think that was part of the reason why I wasn't highly recruited. Plus, I was a late bloomer.
Okay, so you want to tell us a little bit about your time at LSU? I know you became the starter in 1977. I know the game that stood out to me, just looking at your career, was a 4-touchdown game against Oregon. You want to just touch on some of the highlights of your career at LSU?
Yeah, okay. I'll try to make this a little brief. My first season at LSU basically was a mirror of my high school career. I had the first game I can remember. I never did make it back to the line of scrimmage. I wasn't a starter, but sometime in the second quarter, Coach McClendon asked for White 2 to go into the game, and that's the second unit, and I was the second team tailback, and didn't make it back to the line of scrimmage. I think I had a -8 yards rushing against Nebraska. up in Lincoln, Nebraska when I was a freshman. My freshman year, I had about 2.8 yards per carry on my rushing average. So I didn't see any no daylight. I didn't think I had an opportunity to go to the NFL for sure. So I said, well, I think I probably need to get my academics and just go from there and go back home and be a high school coach. That was my dream, or that was my goals, because we used to fill out a goal sheet at the beginning of the year with Coach Stovall. He was my position coach. And my second year, I think the light switch kind of flicked on. And I had my sophomore year, I think I averaged over 5 yards a carry as a backup. I almost had 900 yards rushing, backing up Terry Robisky. And my junior year was one of my better years. Well, was my better year in college. Almost had 1,700 yards rushing. And I was a Heisman Trophy candidate my senior year, a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate my senior year. And pulled a hamstring in the middle of the year, never was really healthy until the end of the year. But I still managed to get 1,100 yards rushing, and went on and was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals. I was a 12th pick. I was a 12th pick in the first round. At that particular year, Cincinnati had 2 first-round draft choices. They had the 3rd pick in the first round, and I was a 12th pick. The 3rd pick was Jack Thompson from Washington State, and I was a 12th pick.
All right, so let's talk. Everybody sees Draft Day now, ESPN, the NFL Network. What was your draft day experience like in 1979, and how did you find out you were going to be a Cincinnati Bengal?
Well, it certainly wasn't on television, I can promise you that. I can remember I had a little small apartment, maybe a mile off of LSU's campus. I was still going to school, and I took that particular day off of school. I had maybe 3 reporters in my little small apartment, and we all huddled around a little portable radio and listened to the draft. And we didn't have cell phones back in those days, so I was just waiting for my house phone to ring. And it did ring a couple of times, and it was just friends and family calling me and asking me about have I been drafted. So, when the phone rings, you hope it's the team, and I was disappointed at least 2 or 3 times, and about, thinking that it would be someone to call it to draft me, and it was just family.
The bad thing there is, Charles, you got no call waiting back then, so they could be trying to call, and the phone's going to be ringing busy.
Yeah, I had the smoke signals, It's amazing how you can look back and see how different things, I'm not going to say ancient, I'm going to use the word different. Different things were back in those days. First of all, relying on a portable radio, and then hoping that the telephone would ring. So I did get, I think I got the call after it was close to noon, if I remember correctly, and asking me when could I come to Cincinnati for an interview. I was drafted by the Bengals, so I was excited, and I called my relatives and told them everything was honky-dory.
All right, so you get there. The owner is Paul Brown, one of the greatest football coaches that ever lived. You want to tell us a little bit about your interactions over your career with Paul Brown?
It wasn't very much. Paul Brown was more of he would come to every practice. He didn't hold very long conversation, which I was pretty quiet back, and I guess it was kind of hard to talk to me too back in those days. But he would give you some advice. He would speak to the team about 2 or 3 minutes before every training camp. Basically told us, look, your career's, most of you guys are not going to be here. Your career's going to be, 3 to 4 years. Don't think that you're going to be rich or not have to work the rest of your life, because back then, players' salaries were pretty low. and he would always tell us to save your money, buy your house, save your money, and find something that you want to do after your career, which was good advice. His son, Mike Brown, I know he's still working with the Bengals. I think he's the president now. You had more interaction with him more than Paul Brown. But I can tell you one quick story that I do remember about Paul Brown. Like I said, he used to come to practice. I can't remember him ever hardly missing a practice. But it was right before the Freezer Bowl in Cincinnati. We were about to play the San Diego Chargers, and I don't know if you remember that the weather was just unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
It was cold.
I live here, Charles. I remember that weather. I was like 12
okay.
13 years old, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was brutal. And Coach Greg was a tough guy, and he believed in, you got to play in this tomorrow, so I'm going to take practice. I mean, we're going to practice like we normally practice. We're not going to make any adjustments for our practice schedules because you guys got to be out there tomorrow. So we're going to just go through with the way we normally do it. And I can remember after about maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, Paul Brown kind of interrupted practice and told us he got to shut this bad boy down. There's no sense in this, and let's just deal with this weather tomorrow. And practice was over. It was a very short practice.
The bad thing is this: you bring up the Freezer Bowl. If that was today, they would move the game back to Monday, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
I know back in those days, we had to show how tough we were. It was very smart, but it was. It's one of those games you'll never forget.
Well, we talked about going to the Bengals. I mean, you came from LSU, which I'm sure you played in front of a packed house every game. You get to the Bengals in 1979. Like you said, they drafted Jack Thompson thinking he was going to replace Kenny Anderson, I think.
Right.
Homer Rice was the head coach. You want to talk a little bit about your rookie season?
Oh, my rookie season was, I guess, sort of. I didn't start most of my rookie season. I think Archie Griffin and I sort of like rotated in. They didn't feel like I was ready to play, and which I probably wasn't. I was looking back at it. There was a lot to learn for me, and it was a different type of offense. The running back was more involved in blocking for the fullback, more of a receiving type running back. It wasn't. I wasn't used to what I came from LSU, which I was the back in the I formation and get toss right, toss left, run the ball off the tackle, maybe a draw off the middle. It was a totally different offense, so it took a little adjusting for me to get used to it. And we didn't have great teams back in those days either. I think we went 4-12 my first year, so it was a learning process. And I think Coach Homer Rice got fired after my rookie year, and I think Paul Brown decided that he needed to bring someone in a little bit tougher, if you want to. I think that's the word to use, a tough guy.
Yeah.
And he decided to hire Forrest Gregg, and there were several changes made. Had a whole lot of new teammates my second year. But the third year, we saw things start to happen, and I think that's the year that we did go to Super Bowl.
Well, before you get to 81, you had 1980, which was a year where the Bengals, I think you guys actually beat the Steelers twice. You were in every game, just couldn't quite get over the hump. What was it that Forrest Gregg brought to the team that turned it around from 79 to 80 even?
I guess I could use two words: discipline, toughness. He wasn't an easy guy to play for, but you respected his decisions. I loved him as a coach. He was fair. There's no one that played for Coach Griggs that could say he wasn't fair. I mean, he was tough, but he was fair. He would always, if you did what you had to do and you listened to some of the things that he said in the meetings and played like you were capable of, we would be in, like you said, we would be in a lot of games. We actually beat. I mean, at that time, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers was a big deal. I mean, they had a great team with Franco Harris and Terry Bradshaw and Mean Joe Green. They had a Jack Lambert. I could just remember all those guys, and they had a great team. But we were able to. Coach Greg was able to fire us up and get us to play our best once we played the Steelers every year. Those years.
Yeah, and you go into the 1981 season. I mean, the game that stands out to most people is that first game. I think you guys are losing to Seattle 21-0. Come back and win the game. I think 27-21. You had a big win in New York against a really good Jets team. I mean, when during that season did you realize you guys had something special?
Ooh. Well, 1981, the Super Bowl season. We really, things started to click, I think, after the third or fourth game. We're like, okay, we got something here. Our defense was good. We had some great linebackers, and we had a great defensive line with Wilson Whitley and Gary Burley and Eddie Edwards, Ross Brown. We had a real good defensive line. Special teams was good. Created a lot of big plays for us, and offensively, they would always put us in a good position on the field when we took over offensively, and I think that was Chris Hollingsworth. Was that Chris Collinsworth?
Chris came in as the second-round pick, and Verser was the first-round pick.
Okay, Chris Collinsworth's rookie year. I remember that. And,
you had Isaac Curtis, Kenny Riley, Reggie Williams. I mean, that team was really good.
Yeah, we were deep, but we needed somebody to bring it out of us, and that's what Coach Greg did. Chris wasn't the prettiest. He didn't run the prettiest routes, but he would catch everything that was close to him.
Then you had Dan Ross, too. You can't forget about
that.
Dan
Ross. That's true. Dan was one of my better friends on the team. Great hands. Some of the best hands I've seen. Same thing with Chris. And Isaac was still had a lot left in him. He had great speed, great hands, ran great routes. And Kenny, it seems like they were trying to replace Kenny the whole time I was there, and he just never would quit. And when the smoke cleared, he would always end up on top. And we had a lot of great athletes. Pete Johnson was in the backfield with me. Nobody wanted to tackle Pete once it got cold, especially.
Yeah, and he had a great offensive line. I mean, you're running behind Anthony Munoz, guys like that. I mean,
Flatbush, Anthony Munoz, Max Montoya, Dave Lappin. Yeah, we had some great guys. Glenn Bujanock from Texas A&M. We had a great offensive line, and just seems like we played better. The longer the year went, the better we got, or the better we felt about ourselves, and it was a great team to be a part of.
Yeah, the game to me as a fan, where I realized how good you guys were when you went to San Diego and beat them, I think 40-17.
Monday night. I think that was a Monday night game.
82 was the Monday night because we didn't. There was no Bengal games on Monday night in 81 because the Bengals were so bad a couple years before that. But I mean, because this is the thing. I had Ed White, the great former guard for San Diego, on, and we're talking about the Freezer Bowl, and he starts whining that if they'd have played in San Diego, they'd have beat us. And I'm like, Ed, if you remember, the Bengals beat you worse in San Diego in November in 80-degree weather.
Yeah, I can remember.
Of course, he didn't recall that game, Charles.
Huh?
He didn't recall that game.
I didn't. Well, I guess I was shell-shocked because every time we would score, that cannon would go off. That would kind of catch you off guard,
Well,
but it was a lot of fun playing them in the Freezer Bowl because that had to be worth at least 10 points because they did not want to play in those conditions.
Yeah, Kenny Anderson threw like it was 70 degrees out, and Dan Fouts threw like he just wanted to go home. But before we get to that, we can't miss the game I most remember from your career was the divisional playoff game against a Buffalo team that I think may have been better than that San Diego team. I think you ran for 72 yards, 2 touchdowns. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think Coach Gregg gave us the old Max McGee speech that week. That guy used to give some great speeches too, by the way. And, I don't know if you remember Max McGee. He was a wide receiver
Super Bowl
with the Green Bay Packers, and he didn't play much. If he played a lot, they didn't really feature him. And Coach Gregg said that we need a Max McGee. We need somebody to stand up, and somebody that we hadn't really depended on all year. And he told us the old Max McGee story and how Max McGee saved him in a playoff game. And Pat McInally teased me after that game. He started calling me Max McGee. I was basically
the next week, M.L. Harris was Max McGee. He made the game-finishing touchdown catch.
That's right, right. And Don Bass caught a touchdown pass, too.
That year in the playoffs, the guys that you wouldn't expect to be making the plays are the ones that made the plays. I think is what made that team so good because you guys were so deep at almost every position.
Yeah, and you couldn't, going back to that Buffalo game, they, I guess in their minds, and I would have done the same thing, I would have designed my defense to stop Pete Johnson. We relied on Pete pretty much all year, and I think they were focused on shutting Pete down, and that's how, when I got my opportunity, I was able to capitalize and help the team out.
All right, so we got to talk about the Freezer Bowl a little bit. I know you touched on it a little bit, but what was it like to play in those conditions? What do you remember most about that game?
Well, before each home game, we were put out up north, and I can't remember where, but we were always put in a hotel the night before the game. And that particular morning after our team meeting and brunch, we always used to leave the hotel at a certain time to make sure we got to the game on time. And most cars didn't start because everything was just frozen up. And I think they had to get a bus to get a lot of us to the stadium. It was unbelievable. And you get to the stadium and you go out and warm up, and you could see the Gatorade and everything starting to freeze, and it's like, man, this is serious weather out here. Guys just put on as much as they could to keep warm and still be able to move. That was the key. You couldn't put too much on, but you also wanted to put enough on so you could stay warm. And we had those rubber scuba diving gloves. The running backs and the wide receivers used to wear those to try to help out, keep your hands warm, and to catch the football. Man, it's amazing how ancient things were back then.
I know. I go to the high school football team now, and all these kids are wearing gloves that are so sticky you should never drop anything.
Really? So
can't you catch without the gloves? When I played, there wasn't no gloves.
Yeah, but these were, I don't know if you even remember seeing them. These were the black gloves, and they were thick.
Yeah, I remember seeing them during the game broadcast, actually.
Okay, and it's just hard to even imagine trying to hold on to a ball wearing those gloves, but we did. And but the thing I know I had in my mind, it's like, okay, I know I'm uncomfortable, and my advantage is at least I've been dealing with this weather all week. I've been here in Cincinnati. I couldn't imagine that those guys coming out of 75-degree weather.
Yeah, and if you remember the week before when they played Miami in the Orange Bowl, it was like 80, 85 degrees there.
I remember that.
That's
Kellen
like
Winslow.
150-degree difference, yeah.
You're right. I mean, that's the game that Kellen Winslow almost fell out, and they had to help him off the field. Is that the game?
Yeah, it's the game where the Dolphins had two chances to win it with field goals, I think, and he actually blocked both of them, and then he caught like 12 or 13 balls in the game.
Right. He was so exhausted. I remember that, and I mean, you're talking almost 100-degree change in the weather.
Yeah, actually, if you go wind chill, it's about 150-degree difference.
Right. So I just knew they had to be uncomfortable. Whether or not they were showing it is a different story. But it was a mental game, a mental thing, and I just felt like we had to have the advantage.
All right, so you win the game, you go to the Super Bowl. And, of course, being Bengals luck, the Super Bowl's in Pontiac, where it's also below zero and snowing. What do you remember about the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl and then the game itself?
Well, at that time, there was no Twitter. There was no – I don't even know if it was internet or, So the media was basically someone that would come to you with a microphone. It wasn't much –
yeah, it was just TV and radio back then.
Yeah, right. It wasn't a lot of the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of that. So we did get coverage, and like you said, unfortunately, it was in Pontiac, Michigan. we didn't. It was hard to get in any type of trouble there because you couldn't go anywhere. You was basically locked up in your hotel room because all the snow, and we had rental cars, but we couldn't use them because most of us were scared to try to get out there and drive in the snow. So it was a different experience, but a good experience. The game itself, thank God, the first half in particular, we didn't play Cincinnati Bengals football. We were a little uptight, and it kind of showed, and we fell behind. If I remember correctly, it might have been 20-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
And thing I was worried about, I'm like, man, 20-0 at halftime. Now we got to go in this locker room at halftime and deal with Forrest Gregg. So I was like, well, here it goes. And lo and behold, there was no screaming. There was no yelling. Coach Gregg said, look, you guys are obviously uptight. You're not playing like I know you can play. And he said, I'm just going to let you guys think amongst yourselves, and let's just go out there and we can do better than this. And that was pretty much it. He let us just deal with ourselves, and things actually turned around in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you guys come back, almost win the game. I got to ask you about the goal line stand, I guess.
Don't break that up, please.
I didn't want to, but I know there's going to be, a bunch of people listening. Why didn't you ask about that goal line stand?
Okay.
So what the hell happened?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'll make it, I'll tell as much as I can. We were always dependent on Pete Johnson, on the goal line especially, that's the way we should have. And they were prepared for it. And I think it was on third down, we said, well, we're going to get a little bit away from our tendencies, and we're going to fake it to Pete and hit me with a pass in the flat. And as I released going toward the linebacker, trying to make him think that I was going to block him, it looked like he was in the huddle with us. And I knew that Ken Anderson was going to have to get rid of the football real fast. So the last thing I wanted was to get hit in the back of the head with the football.
Yeah.
So my thing was get your head around, focus on the football, and catch the football. That's number one. But as some of the commentators said, I should have run a little bit farther up in the end zone and then broke my right off. But I didn't want to get
that. He may not have had time to get you the ball.
That was my point. Yeah,
and I mean, the thing is this: even the way you ran the route, it took a perfect tackle to make that play.
Oh, they were ready for it. They were. I don't.
And my bigger problem is this: on 4th and goal, I still think if you bootleg Kenny Anderson, you walk in the end zone.
Bootleg Kenny Anderson and let Dan Ross an option. Yeah, he could either run or throw to Dan.
Yeah, and I mean, really, the way they were lined up, I don't think anybody had been out there to stop Anderson from running it in.
Okay.
But what the hell?
Yeah.
I'm a Bengals fan, so every game ends with a sad story, or every season ends with a sad story. So I'm used to that. We go to 1982, strike year. You want to talk a little bit about your experiences during the strike?
Yeah, I think that kind of that divided the team a little bit. That was I'm just trying to remember some of the things that happened. You know, we were told by our player rep, which I can't remember who the player rep was at that time, but we were told by the player rep we were going to play 3. I think it was 3 games or 4, and then we were going to go on strike. So save up your pennies, don't spend your money, and then you have a little nest egg to hold you over until this deal is decided on what till we decide on what we're going to do. And lo and behold, after the first week, we had guys wanting to cross the line. So I was like, okay, this ain't going to be nobody actually thought it was going to happen. I don't think that's what it was.
So nobody actually saved their money.
Right. Well, I'm not going to say nobody, but there was some pressure for us to go back and after the first week, and strike lasted a little bit longer than we anticipated. If I remember correctly, here I go with my memory again, but it had to last at least a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah, because I think the season ended up being 9 weeks, so you probably had a week of practice in there. So, yeah, probably about 6.
Yeah, and I don't know, that particular, after that, guys, some guys didn't get along anymore, and it was some ill feelings, and we just didn't come together as a unit after that happened. It was a short season, and I can remember us trying to keep the team together. We used to go to the University of Cincinnati and practice, try to keep everybody together, and not just sit at home and try to wait and see what happened. And it was just an ugly thing, and I really don't think it was worth it from what we got out of the deal.
Yeah, it almost never is. The owners seem like they almost always win. You guys needed Marvin Miller, the one that did the baseball strike in '81. He could have taken care of you better, I think.
Right. And I think, and I wasn't involved in the next strike, but free agency was the key in the next strike, and that's when the salaries just started to explode.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem with those is, as you see, retired players were never really considered in either one of those negotiations, I don't think.
Never. And, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the older guys, those guys.
Especially the guys from like the 60s. I've had a couple guys on that were Hall of Famers that played for 12 years, and they'll tell me, my pension today is $1,200 a month.
Yeah, exactly.
From a $6 billion industry. And that's just
that's pretty weak. Yeah, and like you said, the rest of the sports, basketball and baseball, those guys are taken care of. But I know I'm preaching to the choir on this.
The problem is NFL players are the ones that need to be taken care of because the average career is 3.5 years.
Right. Yeah, we don't.
A lot of guys play for a year or two, don't even qualify for the pension.
And that's a shame also. But that strike year in '82 was it wasn't a pretty thing. And we were all
you guys still ended up having a good regular season, going 7-2, and then the bottom kind of fell out against Freeman McNeil and the Jets. We're not even going to discuss that because that game. 83 was a rough season. I know you guys suffered a lot of injuries and stuff. Forrest Gregg left. What was your first impression of Sam Weiss?
Can I go back to the Forrest Gregg left?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I can remember, for some reason, every time we played on national TV that year, we would get beat.
Oh, yeah, I remember Miami beating y'all like 38-14. I remember those games.
Yeah, so far
I ruined my whole week back then. I was in like 7th, 8th grade, so I thought everything was way more important than what it actually was.
When you lost a game, particularly, well, he wanted to win. You know, of course, he wanted to win them all. And like when we played Cleveland, I can remember Cleveland for some reason. Well, I know why Cleveland. Green Bay, and I don't know how Minnesota got in this, but he would just snap when you go to the locker room after a loss. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. He had some choice words for us after the last. That was on the road. It was in Minnesota, and after we got in the locker room, he gave us, that was his last speech to us. And after that speech, I was like, I don't think this guy is coming back.
Was that the Merry Effing Christmas or something?
Yeah. How did you know?
I think.
Hey, I didn't want to say it on the radio.
Yeah, it was either Gary Burley or Reggie Williams was on and told the exact same story about the game in Minnesota.
I didn't want to say it on the radio, but that was it. That was his last words.
Well, I think there, no matter what was going on here, Forrest Gregg was going to go back to Green Bay no matter what y'all did.
Yeah, that was his final word. That's the last time I ever heard him speak.
Well, I know we had me and Joe Kelly do a weekly Bengals show. You remember the old Bengal linebacker? And we had Bo Harris as our guest last week during the show. And he said he actually talked to Forrest on the phone last week, and Forrest was doing better than what he had been.
Great, that's great. That's great. Did Bo bring that up to Coach Gregg?
No, I don't know. Bo didn't bring it up to us. But But I'm supposed to interview Bo at some point about his career, too. So I'm betting it'll come up because almost every 1981, 82, 83 Bengal brings that up. But so it's got to be polar opposites. You get Sam Weiss after Forrest Gregg.
Yeah.
I don't think Forrest was doing too many magic tricks.
Now, I can put Coach Weiss sort of like, we started out with Homer Rice, which, Homer was a very small man, maybe 5'7", definitely didn't weigh 170 pounds. Then you bring Forrest Gregg and have 6'6", 270 or whatever.
Yeah, whip everybody on the team's ass, Bill.
Right. So the next coach is Sam Weiss, and he kind of like falls in the middle, and not only in the middle for his physical size, he fell in the middle with he wasn't a Homer Rice, but he also wasn't a Forrest Gregg for his all this yelling and screaming and intimidating guys and all of that. So Coach Weiss kind of coached you more out of motivation. He would try to motivate you rather than intimidate you. So
motivation is scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, right. Except for when he and I wasn't there at the time, but I've seen this on YouTube when he took the microphone. Some of the Bengal fans were acting up in the stands and told them, "You live in Cincinnati, you don't live in Cleveland."
Yeah, you don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati.
Right.
That ended up in a loss also, 24-17 to the Seahawks. See, all the stuff from when I was in junior high and high school was beat into me. I can remember every score from pretty much every
Right.
Couldn't tell you what happened over the last 20 years at all, probably. But I mean, in the 90s, I think it just kind of made me kind of brain dead from watching them try to play back then. But I mean, 1984, it was actually a season that I thought that team, the way they were playing, had a shot to actually make a Super Bowl if they could have made the playoffs. I think you guys started off 1-6 and then got hot. And I think the got hot thing coincided with Kenny Anderson where they finally gave him his job back when Boomer had a rough time for a few games. You want to talk
right.
about the 84 season?
Yeah, now, for some reason I don't remember much about 84 and 85, but I just remember, I think we had Eddie Brown was on that team.
I can't remember. No, I think Eddie was 85. I still think it was.
Oh,
Curtis
was he? Okay.
For the main wide receiver.
Okay, and I'm trying to remember. I know Dan Ross had left and come back, and I don't remember if he had come back that year or the year
Boomer
after.
Esiason had come in, and I think they tried to start him off and on, but Anderson always outplayed him.
Right, and that's. I knew eventually though that the Boomer was going to end up being the quarterback because I'm like, poor Kenny, man.
Because I still take Kenny Anderson over Boomer Esiason any day.
Yeah. Kenny was a tough guy to endure all of that. I'm like, man, he never pouted. He just went on about his work and done his thing. But Sam brought in a new staff, and I had a new running back coach. We had Stanley Wilson, James Brooks. I think Pete Johnson was traded for James Brooks, and I was kind of stuck at moving to the fullback position, but it was a totally different offense.
I think it was Stanford Jennings' first year there too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been. His first, I think I played 2 years with Stanford out of Furman. We had James Brooks, Stanley Wilson, Larry Kennebrew, and we had a new running back coach, Jim Anderson.
Who ended up being there forever.
Yeah. How's he doing? Do you know?
I have no idea. I don't think he's with them anymore as a running backs coach, but I'm not 100% sure. I know he was a few years ago, but
yeah, he might have gone into management with the Bengals. I know he really had a close connection with Mike Brown. But those were some good years also. Like you said, we had a good team, and one thing Coach Weiss did bring to the team was a lot of rigid new things like the no huddle offense. Yeah. I think we were the first ones to bring that to the NFL, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I mean, the first time, other than maybe a team running a 2-minute drill, but it was the first team to run the 2-minute drill during the actual game.
Right, during the actual game. And
I think the Bengals, with Jim McNally as the offensive line coach, were one of the first teams to really use the zone blocking scheme, too.
Wow, okay.
Which I think that was more like the 86-87 season.
Right, yeah. I know Kennebrew really liked to run that 46M lead with that zone blocking.
Yeah.
He used to do a good job at that.
Yeah, he was a good running back. He just kind of ate himself out of the league, I think, though.
Yeah, but I think I saw a picture. Man, he looks really good now. He's smaller now than he was when he played.
Well, I got to find him, get him on the show. He's one of my favorites. I remember the game in Houston in '84. I think he scored like 4 touchdowns.
You tell him I said hello. He's a good guy. Oh, I like old Larry. Yeah.
I was hoping maybe you know him. So. But, all right, so you wrapped your career up in 1985. What have you been doing since? What are you doing today?
I have a little product. Well, not one product. I got several products. I'm in the seasoning business, spending a lot of time in Louisiana. I'm in the seasoning business, and I have my products in about 250 stores. I have an all-purpose seasoning. I have a fish fry. I have 2 hot sauces, and I have a crab ball. I have a website that people can go to and order online. I'm getting it in a lot of stores on the East Coast, so I don't know if it's in the Ohio area yet. I'm waiting for a list of stores to see where they have actually been shipping my product. But the website is www. Well, I need to tell you the name of the product too. It's called Come On Man Cajun Seasoning. Stole that from the ESPN Monday Night Football crew.
Yeah, you need to get one of them guys to come on and endorse it for you.
Well, they actually gave me about maybe a year and a half ago, maybe 2 football seasons ago, they actually gave me about 15 seconds. Not me personally, but they did put my product on the screen. Yeah, and talked about it for about 15 seconds. So that helped out a lot. But the website is ComeOnManCajunSeasoning.com. Or you can pull up my name, and it'll kind of go straight to that website.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what gave you the inclination to start that business, and how long ago did you start it?
Started about 4 years ago, and I like to cook, and I have my all-purpose seasoning. I had been pretty much dibbling and dabbling in it for the last 10, 15 years. A lot of my friends and relatives said, man, you need to put it on the market. So someone came to me with an opportunity on how to package and blend my ingredients, and I took the ball and ran from it, and it's growing every year.
All right, so what was that website again, just for anybody that wants to order?
It's www.ComeOnManCajunSeasoning.com.
All right, anybody that's listening, if you didn't write it down or you don't have something to write it down with, go on our Facebook page, The Grueling Truth. You'll see a link to his website there. And we'll also put a link on Twitter for him, so make sure that you check that out. So, anything else occupying your time today, Charles?
Well, I'm also in the oil and gas business here in Houston. I follow the Bengals. I have that NFL package, so you can pretty much follow anyone on any team on the NFL package. Do that. Since I live here in Houston, I like to watch the Texans, and just still love football, man. It's been a part of my life, and I enjoy watching it.
All right. Well, you got to come on with me and Joe Kelly some Wednesday night. We do a show every 8 o'clock every Wednesday night, a weekly Bengals show.
Yeah, I would love to. I only played I think Joe was a rookie when I got cut, so I don't really know Joe that well, but I have met him. You tell him I said hello.
I definitely will, and I'll be back in touch with you, see if you want to come on with us sometime.
That sounds good.
All right. Hey, thanks again, Charles, for calling in.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep,
right.
You too. All right, guys, that was Charles Alexander, former LSU Cincinnati Bengals running back. Make sure you check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. You can hear all shows on iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, pretty much anywhere you anywhere you find sports podcast, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Charles Alexander, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.